Welcome to TV Africa News. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Nahabe Kujura. Read first are the headlines. The Lands Minister Mayanja writes to IGG to investigate senior staff over fraud. And UN welcomes UPDF operation against ADF rebels in Democratic Republic of Congo. Global warming not responsible for famine in Madagascar. In our sports today, Butambala Mawogola shares pose in Muganzi Raza Group duo. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We start with one of our top stories. Now, the State Minister of Lands, Sam Mayanja, has written to the Inspectorate of Government to investigate a senior staff in the Ministry of Fraud. We have more on this report. In a December 1st letter, Mayanja said that his office has received complaints in regard to fraud, double titling of land involving suspected fraudulent transfers and other unprofessional behavior by Ivan Serambala, the senior staff surveyor of Bukalasa. Mayanja said that the unprofessional acts or omissions would have led to actual or potential financial losses to government by the senior staff surveyor of Bukalasa, Mr. Ivan Serambala, which vice he said cuts across all ministerial zonal offices of all over the country. The letter has also been copied to Lands Minister Judith Nabakoba, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Lands, and the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Public Service. In a separate notice, the State Minister for Lands, Sam Mayanja, has written to Uganda Land Commission, District and City Land Boards, warning them on granting, renewing, and re-entry of leases. Minister Mayanja says that in accordance with the Constitution, leases are recognized as tenancies and that any citizen of Uganda is allowed to convert his lease into a freehold land ownership. The minister urged Uganda Land Commission, District and City Land Boards to follow the guidelines on the administration of land under the Land Act in regards leases. He advised that in accordance with the Act, in exercising powers of the leaser, the District, City Land Board or Uganda Land Commission shall not automatically re-enter a lease land, whereas renewable and extension of leases on initial and full terms for all citizens shall be automatic. Away from that, Kampala Capital City Authority NOB Caucus is suggesting that some space be designated along some streets for organized street trading activities to give small business people an opportunity to earn a living. It should be remembered that Kampala Resident City Commissioner Hudu Hussein directed all street vendors and hawkers to immediately vacate the streets of Kampala as one of the ways to avert the rising terror in the city center. We have more on this report.
Speaking to the media at City Hall in Kampala, the chairperson, National Unity Platform Caucus, also councillor for Kampala Central, Moses Katabu, said that times are hard and many businesses are recovering from the COVID-19 lockdown effects. Therefore, denying vendors an opportunity to earn a living will make livelihoods hard, especially for the common person.
We take, as leaders of National Unity Platform, cognizance of the fact that parents are in their financial situation, but we all appreciate that children are returning to school in January. We therefore need to answer the call for effective response to the businesses that had an immense beating due to the COVID-19 restrictions. Traders require a spur if our people can recover from this unfortunate downtrend.
Last month, Kampala Resident City Commissioner Hudu Hussein directed that all street vendors and hawkers immediately vacate the streets of Kampala as one of the measures to avert the rising terror in the city center. But councillors say this isn't satisfying because there are many congested areas in downtown Kampala which are operating, such as Chikubo and St. Balikudembe Market, which also are at risk of terrorism.
Mbadde nkusaba nti enguudo ezimukkiriza abatembeeyi oba bava ssaawa 10 ku makya bakome ssaawa 4 then tukimanye nti buno obudde obusigadde awo ebyammwe ebya security we bigenda okukola naye nga muleka abantu bakole muleme tubuzaabuza na bintu bya security nga mwezammwe business gye mulina ennyo gye muli focus ennyo zikola basi zikola zigendamu abantu nga bameka zo zitambula gwotulowoozese mbu Kampala ye wali security ey'amaanyi ennyo.
On the other hand, councillors are demanding for the opening of all tax park with immediate effect to ease transport for Ugandans, especially in this festive season.
We believe that during this period, more people require the facility. The time is now to ease the suffering of the innocent travelers who meander around looking for tax stages on the streets.
Nalgo Muyingo, Africa Today.
Well, thank you so much, reporter. Moving on, the UN mission in the DRC has said it welcomes regional cooperation to tackle cross-border threats. Now, the two armies are carrying out a ground and air operation against the rebels. We have more.
The United Nations mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo comments came after the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda armies launched a joint operation to hunt for the fighters from the Allied Democratic Forces after it was accused of carrying out suicide bombings in Uganda's capital Kampala last month. A United Nations spokesperson in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Matthias Gilman, told a press conference in Kinshasa on Wednesday that the move was a legitimate choice and sovereign decision by Congolese authorities. Mr. Gilman added that they encouraged regional countries to work together to solve a cross-border threat like the one Uganda and Congo took to fight the Allied Democratic Forces. The United Nations has had a huge presence of troops in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo for the past 2 decades. But earlier this year, demonstrations shook the towns of Goma and Beni as people called for an end to the United Nations operation, said it had proved ineffective in efforts to achieve stability. The United Nations Security Council is scheduled to decide on 6 December whether to extend the mandate of the mission.
Well, thank you so much, reporter. We take a quick break. We shall come back with the international news. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In our international news today, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi pledged support for Ethiopia during a state visit on Wednesday. Now, Fana TV reported as the Addis Ababa government continues to battle fighters from the northern Tigray region. We have more.
Speaking at a news conference after meeting Ethiopian Deputy Prime Minister Demeke Mekonnen, Wang stressed the growing comradeship between the two countries and China's desire to further strengthen this relationship. Mekonnen thanked China for its strong support regarding the action that the government is taking on those that attracted its sovereignty. The visit comes as the head of the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, Martin Griffiths, said the situation in Ethiopia, where government forces have been battling fighters from the Tigray region, is the most worrying in terms of urgent immediate need, and said he was very worried about a possible siege by fighters on the capital Addis Ababa. Tens of thousands of people have been killed in the war that erupted in November 2020 between Ethiopian troops and the Tigray forces, who had long dominated the national government before Ahmed took office in 2018. Last month, the Prime Minister announced he would travel to the battlefront to direct the army. Foreign media have been barred from Tigray for much of the war, with communication links severed.
Moving on, a new study has shown that global warming has played a minor role in the famine situation in southern Madagascar, blaming poverty and natural climate variability. Now, the southern part of the Indian Ocean island has been hit by a drought unseen in decades, which has plunged more than 1 million people into acute malnutrition. Our reporter has more. In June, the World Food Programme described this crisis as the first famine caused by global warming due to human activities. However, a study by scientists at the World Weather Attribution Initiative, an international collaboration led by Imperial College London and the Royal Netherlands Meteorological Institute, has attributed the situation to the drastic change in rainfall patterns deficit for 21 consecutive months between July 2019 and June 2021. The study further discovered that a natural variation in the climate was most likely the main reason for the drought. The group say that poverty, poor infrastructure, and high level of dependency on rain for agriculture were also behind the country's food crisis. Madagascar received only around 60% of its usual average rainfall for 2 years in a row, the lowest in 30 years. The drought has also led to widespread crop failure in the country's south, and around 1.3 million people nationwide are in need of food assistance. The scientists could not rule out climate change entirely as contributing to the lower rainfall, but its role, if any, was so small that it was vague from the country's historical climate patterns. WFP responded to the study by saying the food crisis was the result of a combination of above-average temperatures, lower rainfall, crop failures, and other vulnerabilities in the communities dependent on subsistence agriculture, worsened by the economic impact of COVID-19. Well, thank you so much, reporter. Moving on in our international news, and a blazing sun, two Cameroonian health workers, Irene and Lucien, tried to convince passers-by to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Now they accost a young man in his 30s who refuses to accept. Ramos said that he doesn't trust the vaccine because white people don't like them, adding that they want to kill them with vaccines in which they introduce illicit products. Our reporter has more.
In Cameroon, one of the sub-Saharan African countries most affected by COVID-19, with more than 170,000 infections, including 1,795 deaths, preconceived ideas and misinformation on social networks are holding back the vaccination campaign. Only 1.1% of the population aged over 18 has been vaccinated since the first doses were administered 7 months ago, according to the Ministry of Health, a long way from the stated objectives of 40%, 5 weeks before the African Cup of Nations scheduled to take place in the country. Faced with the reluctance of Cameroonians, the government has launched a double vaccination campaign, one of 5 days from November 17th to 21st, targeting the entire population, and another of 1 month from November 10th to December 10th for the civil servants. Irene and Lucien positioned themselves in the early hours of the day in front of a small public hospital in Oza, a neighborhood of Yaoundé where a vaccination post had been opened. Their deployment in the middle of the street on a busy road leading to the airport aims to arouse the interest of passers-by. The argument that comes up the most is that the Europeans, referring more generally to Westerners, editors not want to kill us, adds Irene and her colleague. David Messi, an agent of the expanded program on immunization, a government initiative, explained to the media that the reluctance of the population is the result of disinformation through social media.
Moving on, in the heart of Gabon's capital, Libreville, the International Center for Bantu Civilizations, designed to showcase African culture, is now occupied by hundreds of squatting families. The Sisibo project got underway in the 1980s, but a lack of funds meant the project never came to fruition. We have more on this report. In the 1980s, the International Center for Bantu Civilizations, Sisiba, was created to promote the cultural heritage of African people south of the equator. 11 countries, including Angola, Burundi, Central African Republic, Comoros, Congo-Brazzaville, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, DRC, Rwanda, Sao Tome and Principe, and Zambia joined forces to create a vast database accessible to researchers and the general public. The aim is to promote the culture of the Bantus who are present in Central and South Africa and share linguistic roots as well as certain traditions and beliefs. Under the leadership of President Omar Bongo, Ondimba host country Gabon is spending some 10 billion CFA francs, about 15 million euros, to build the center north of Libreville. Two huge concrete elephant tusks several meters high symbolize the entrance. A theater was built, but the resources were not sufficient. Several countries in civil war were unable to finance the project, and only a few buildings were erected, which were abandoned for several years. The Sisiba becomes a white elephant, a huge project that never sees the light of day. The first squatters arrived in 2013. Well, thank you so much, our reporter. We take a quick break. We shall come back with the business news. Welcome back for the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In a business news today, South African president meets with his Ivorian counterpart in Abidjan as he continues his tour of West African states. As he did in Nigeria on Wednesday, Ramaphosa slams pandemic health appetite, which he described as slap in the face of African excellency and expertise.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, while in Cote d'Ivoire, said that as South Africa, they stand firmly against any health appetite in the fight against this pandemic. He used this opportunity given to him to once again call on countries that have imposed these travel restrictions to urgently reconsider their decision and lift those bans and allow people to travel. South African scientists announced on 25th November that they had detected a highly mutated form of coronavirus. The variant has since been reported in many other countries, including Europe, India, and the United States. 3 other African countries, Botswana, Ghana, and Nigeria, have recorded cases. On a visit to Ivory Coast, he said the curbs, which many countries have also applied to across Southern Africa, were regrettable, unfair, and unscientific. He added that these bans will cause untold damage, in particular to travel and tourism industries that sustain businesses and livelihoods in South Africa and the Southern African region.
Bagari.
Away from business, in our health news today, religious institutions in Nigeria have been recruited as part of the country's new vaccination strategy. This comes a day after the country recorded its first cases of the Omicron variant. We have more on this report. Barakat Abiola, a Nigerian student who is about to be vaccinated against the coronavirus, said that she did not need to go to a traditional vaccination center to receive her dose, but rather to her mosque. The student explained that it was the imam who called and asked her to come and get vaccinated. Places of worship are therefore visited by health workers as part of the so-called outreach vaccination. Atinuke Onayig, a senior health official in Lagos, said that churches and mosques are strategic places that gather people on days of worship, such as Fridays, Sundays, which is an added advantage. Kate Lukpat, a Christian worshipper, who said that the introduction of the health pass in the public administration has triggered a rush for the precious liquid in the country. The coronavirus outbreak has killed 2,976 people and infected 214,113 in Nigeria, according to the official statistics, but the actual numbers are believed to be much higher, partly because of low screening rates. But vaccination rates remain low, with just over 6.5 million people having received a dose, while only 3.5 million Nigerians have been fully vaccinated out of the country's 210 million population. Now Now let's turn your attention to our sports news today. Butambala and Mawogola share the spoils in a 1-1 draw during a Muganzi Raza Group encounter of the 2021 Masaza Cup at the Fufa Technical Center in Njeru on Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. We have more on this report.
Isaiah Sabiti got Maogola's opener and Blancha Malembe replied for Butambala. Sabiti shot Maogola ahead as early as 7th minute into the roof of the net past goalkeeper Fahad Imran. The joy was short-lived when Blancha Mlamba headed home the equalizer with 4 minutes to the half-hour mark. Butambala got 2 late cautions from referee Vincent Kavuma, Colin Onega and Francis Mukasa in the 84th minute and 90th minute, respectively. In their first game of the championship, Mawogola earned their first point. Butambala, who had lost the opener 1-0 to Budu, also got their first point in 2 matches. Meanwhile, the second game played on Thursday witnessed 4-goal thriller between Budu and Wekula. Friday is rest day for all the 5 teams in Muganzi Raza Group before another double-header on Saturday, 4th December 2021.
Thank you so much for being our loyal audience from where we started from. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We shall keep updating you. It is TV Africa, the right to know.